think a lot of people's view of the church sometimes is they only show up when they're mad about something or they're protesting against something. And we want to be a church that shows up when we're for things and basically are for our community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to COVID-19 Heroes. I'm your host, Lorraine Schneider, and today I'm excited to have Carrie Gregg on the show. Carrie and her husband, John, lead the Bay Church in Concord, California. With thousands of members calling the Bay Church their home, they have had to adapt the way they not only engage with their parishioners, but also how they continue to serve local needs through their compassionate and dedicated volunteer base. Hi, Carrie. Thank you for being on today's show of COVID-19 Heroes. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So before we dive in, would you please give us a short overview of the church that you and your husband are leading in Concord up in the Bay Area?
Sure. Our church, the Bay Church, is nearly 100 years old. That's something that isn't often said, but nearly 100 years in Concord, California, which is about 30 miles east of San Francisco. And it's a great area. We have I would say, over 3,000 people that call the Bay Church their home. And it's a great place to be. I think our congregation is very ethnically diverse. We probably have 28 languages that are people's first language. And so it's a really beautiful blend of humanity. May 1st will be 9 years for us. So hard to believe we've almost been here. We'll start our 10th year in the month of May.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So as the church, you are at the very core of your congregation's community. Now it's impossible to physically come together. How have you been able to spiritually/virtually come together?
You know, it's been a challenge. I think we've seen everybody, businesses and schools and churches all use some kind of online medium, and we're no different. We started that first weekend not just wondering what in the world we were doing and how we were going to do it. Luckily, we've actually had an online presence for years, and so we had to step it up, of course. But I don't know. I think we all feel a bit lonely for not being together, but we have all of our 4 services are online. So we have 1 on Saturday and 3 on Sunday. So we air them all at the same times that people would normally be going to church. And we've created an atmosphere, I think, online that people can expect even if they were in the seats together. So our music team is together, of course, 6 feet distancing and all that. But I think people are getting the experience that they get when they do come to church. And I think that's been really meaningful. Difference is that we equip our online portal with pastors and people, volunteers, to interact with people as they have needs. So people might ask for prayer or give kind of a great report on, hey, this is happening. I got a job, or we're all healthy, or So there's this kind of constant conversation that we're having during church, which typically doesn't happen. But probably one of the biggest keys at the Bay Church is our small groups. And so we have hundreds and hundreds of small groups that actually are meeting. So you can say a church has, 3,000 people. You might feel like, oh man, do you ever get to know anyone? And yeah, actually, these groups were set up long ago, but they're just meeting differently now. So they're meeting on Zoom and they're connecting in other ways. But yeah, it's been a real awakening how we can continue on and grow. And it's been interesting how many people have been dropping in on the church services. We already know this, that people that haven't gone to church, they're first going to maybe look and see if they have an online presence, and they can actually attend a service, see what we're all about, see what the vibe is and the feel, and what kind of teaching they're going to get, what kind of music do we have. All of that is something that we realize has been a value for quite a while, and now it's just kind of exploded on a different level. I mean, a huge level.
You lead the church's community engagement initiatives. What have you and other church volunteers been able to accomplish over recent weeks to support local citizens during the pandemic?
I think it starts back by first asking your community what they need. And so we've been in the process of developing, as a community engagement person, just developing some relationships. And so we've been able to continue those partnerships now on a broader level. And so finding out, what our civic and community leaders, mayors, vice mayors, all that, schools, other organizations, and I think just showing up where the need is really important. And that's what we've been trying to do, is support what's been going on in our community and showing up alongside of many organizations that are doing a fabulous job.
So you're clearly deeply embedded with the wider community as well, and you have many year-round partnerships with other nonprofits and local governments. How have previously existing relationships been beneficial in helping you out today?
Huge. It's been, I think that's what we want to be as the Bay Church, is in our community, not just during a pandemic, but before and after and during. And so some of the things that we've been able to, for instance, part of our community outreach is going into our schools. We call it Adopt a School, but basically what it is partnering alongside our local schools that are in our community. Every community has a church and every community has a school, and oftentimes they're together. And so we've looked to the schools that are in our neighborhood and asking them what they need. How can we support their teachers? How can we come alongside and be another adult in the classroom? And so by that partnership, we were able to help now in this pandemic. Many of the schools that we serve in are, about 98% of the student body is on assisted government subsidized food programs. And this became a real awareness when they closed our schools down, that how are these children going to receive their meals? How was that impact of not having those meals going to weigh in on a family who sent their children to school knowing that they would get at least 2 meals, and now they're home. And so our school district decided long ago, or when this began, to continue providing these meals to the schools. But how are they going to get them out to the schools? Our volunteers show up at the 2 distribution sites in our neighborhood to help distribute over 800 meals every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. So we've seen that as being a real benefit. Our teachers were overwhelmed, impacted, trying to keep their students involved in the schooling process, which they always do. Principal has his hands full with all the administrative things, and the cafeteria workers can only do so much. So these days we are helping in that process. And one of the principals said, we have 400 children on our list, but only 200 are coming. And so we worked together to put out a questionnaire to find out why weren't families coming. And what we found out is that either both families or both parents were still able to work, and so the children were home alone and couldn't come to get the food, or families don't drive. They're not able to get to the school during the times of food distribution. So we were able to partner with a local bus company. It's called County Connect, and they were willing to come to the school and get those addresses and take the food to those families. So it's just this beautiful partnership of community service providers, the church, volunteers showing up to make a difference. Another thing we've been that we have done in the past, and we have a beautiful shower trailer. So it's a 4-bathroom unit shower trailer that we serve the homeless community in our area on a weekly basis. And of course, some of those outreaches that we've been in partnership with have closed down. We haven't been able to be volunteers in those areas. And so here this beautiful piece of machinery was sitting. And because our county knew that we had this very valuable tool in servicing the homeless, they asked if they could use it at the county fairgrounds, which they're making into a place for those that are homeless that have been diagnosed as having COVID, and offering them a place to shower. So those are some ways that we have been able to lean upon the partnerships that we've already had. They lean on us too. They say, hey, I know that you've got a great organization of people that care about our community. Could you come over here and give us a hand? And so I think that's been great.
That's really, really wonderful. Have you also been involved with supporting local first responders?
Yes. We have a site that is kind of where our church is located. Oftentimes, first responders are coming up to just take a rest. And so we've been able to provide a clean, safe, quiet environment for them to get recharged and be ready. And here coming up in the weeks ahead, we will be a testing site for first responders. So many of them are out on the front lines and they're working so hard. They're feeling vulnerable and perhaps not able to have a testing site. So again, having a parking lot that would provide our county and our region for a safe testing site will happen in the next week or so.
I think, for people who may not attend church on a regular basis, have not had that experience, if they grew up in a different church, for example, me having grown up Catholic, going to church and then coming to the U.S. and having visited your church, it was such a new experience for me, witnessing all the community building and the community engagement that takes place that is very, very different from what I grew up with. So it's beautiful to see that, especially in difficult times like these, the church can continue to support its members.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the church to show up when things are going right. And I think a lot of people's view of the church sometimes is they only show up when they're mad about something or they're protesting against something. And we want to be a church that shows up when we're for things and basically are for our community. And every community is different. Finding out what your community needs are and then providing some of those things. And we can't provide everything that our community needs, but we also want to be a place that they can come on a bigger level and find hope.
So even with the lockdown being lifted sometime over the next month or so, we're really in this for the long haul. And regardless of a second wave coming in the fall, the virus isn't going to go away anytime soon. And your church has thousands of members attending services traditionally. So how will the church adapt to this over the long term until we have a vaccine and, we can live more freely?
We're all anxious for that to happen, but not just because we want to be together, but we want to see people well and healthy and getting over this and through this. And so we're keeping our ear to the ground as well and trying to figure out what our community is saying as far as taking our guidelines from our governor, taking our guidelines from our local officials. We would not maverick off and do something that would be contrary to what they're telling us as a community as a whole. We're anxious to get back together, but we will comply with all of the state regulations on crowd size. And so that's a tough thing to do when you have an open building and, you're having 800 people in every service and you're running more and more services. We're not exactly sure what that's going to look like. I think that it will be a soft start, but our services will be online until we feel that we have the clearance on a government level. And then our building is squeaky clean. I'll tell you what, we have a great crew of I think it's probably the cleanest building in the county right now because our staff has just every little nook and cranny. And this is something we take seriously. When you provide a service to thousands of people over every single weekend, these are some of the regular things that we do to keep our building safe at all times. So, of course, it's amplified. Of course, I know it's for you, we have mandatory face masks that we have to wear now, and they're not letting us in certain any place without a face mask. And so does that look like we're all going to be sporting our face mask? Probably. And the fun thing about that, just side note, is that we actually have a face mask making team. And so we've got about 10 women right now that are burning the tread off of their sewing machines. And we've had over 200 masks have been made, and we are giving them out to all of our volunteers that are out there that are working in these volunteer places that I mentioned earlier. Also, we've been able to give masks to what is our Family Justice Center. It's a domestic violence agency in our community, which is that need has gone up so much. And so where we might not be able to, as the church, to provide everything that somebody might have in this time of crisis, we know where we can direct them. And so we've been giving out masks to that service and their clients that are coming in and to shelters in the area. And so I would imagine our face mask making team is going to be ongoing for the next little while. We haven't quite made a logo of the Bay Church face mask yet, but I just thought of that. We might have to do that.
Yeah, it's a great.
I think we just.
It's a great idea.
Thanks, Lorraine. I think I might work on that. But I'm sure that's it's going to look different when we're together. But we are right now focusing on some of our summer things that we've had to cancel. Obviously, summer camps for kids. We do a summer camp for foster care children, and it breaks our heart that we had to cancel that this year. And so 100 foster care kids don't get to go to camp. Those kinds of things are just not just like, oh, well, we're not going to camp. It just breaks our heart that we're not able to do those kinds of things that really serve our families and our communities at a real deep level. So, yeah, some things have been canceled. We'll continue online. And then when we get the green light to meet together, I'm sure that we'll have to make some adjustments in how that even looks.
Now, probably more so than ever, we're all confronted with our own mortality, whether it's because a family member or a friend has fallen ill, or we've just been inundated with the news. What are some of the big talking points and the focus of your services and meetings at this time?
Yeah, we continue on with our regular service and our service schedule. And right now we have an ongoing to bring normality to what people have been a part of at the Bay Church over the past months. We're continuing on that. We're in a series on the 10 Commandments right now. But I would say that every single time we are very mindful of what is happening in our community. So I think people will find hope, love, acceptance, empathy. We are a Christian church, and we believe in the Bible, and Jesus is our example of how to demonstrate these acts towards people. And so, looking to what he did in serving the orphan and the widow. And the Bible is just full of stories of people who have been marginalized and that are hurting or have been beaten, or just you name it. It's in there. And I think the thing that draws me oftentimes is there's a scripture that talks about how when Jesus could see the crowds, he would look back and he would have great compassion on them. And our church is uniquely positioned where any way you leave our building, you are going to be on some kind of a little precipice that looks over a crowd of homes, or a freeway, or a development. And I think about that often, that people that are coming to the Bay Church, whether it's physically, hopefully very soon, or it's online, that they see those things, that they see the hope, and they see love, and they see acceptance, and that it's a safe place also for some honest conversations. A lot of people, Lorraine, have questions about their own mortality, their spirituality, and we want to be a place that they can ask those questions, and we can help them in this journey that we call life, and help them establish some solid faith and some solid ground in their own life. So we do feel that that's what we're called to do. And it's a unique time. It's really been an interesting time. We have found that when people are online and maybe not even physically present, maybe they, not like their name isn't like Carrie Gregg or Lorraine Schneider, when it's not those names, and it's just an initial. They'll sometimes ask the most telling, vulnerable, deep, and real questions. And we want to be there. Every time a service is broadcast, we have a whole bunch of people that are waiting and praying and wanting to help our community at any level. It's, not everybody comes to the same place all at the same time. And so we have to be ready to serve those where they're at.
That's really beautiful. Well, Carrie, thank you so very much for being on today's episode of COVID-19 Heroes, and thank you so much for everything that you and the rest of the Bay Family Church is doing to support the community during this difficult time.
You are welcome, and I love the concept of your broadcast, and I love the fact that you are celebrating things that are going well in the community at this really tough time.
I'd like to close off this episode by thanking Carrie, Pastor John, and everyone else at the Bay Church who is continuing to build bridges and serve community members in need during these challenging times. You can learn more about the church and the services they provide by visiting thebay.church. I love being able to highlight positive actions like Carrie's coming out of this pandemic. To help me reach even more listeners, I would be extremely grateful if you left a rating or review of the podcast in your app or subscribe to the show. Thank you, and until next time, I'm your host, Lorraine Schneider.